Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Roberts, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to prove your analysis. So let's get started. Okay, before we can prove something, we must first look at what we know. What do we know about this photo here? I actually took this photo, but what does it mean? What is all that information that I see here? I see many pairs of glasses, all different colors, and they look like they're for women. We need to be sure that we look at all the evidence and observe everything. And then we ask, so what? What are we ignoring? What are we omitting? Where are these glasses? And what are our assumptions? You know, jumbled like that, they could be all scratched up. Good for nothing. I mean, what do you do with all your glasses that if you have to wear glasses, what do you do with your glasses once you have a new prescription? You hopefully give them away, don't you? You give them away to maybe the Lions Club. And so, why do you care about these glasses? What can we do with these glasses? One question you can ask is, what if? And that's what the Lions Club did. They asked, what if I took old glasses that people are not using and I looked at the prescription and I cleaned them up as best I could, removed the scratches that I could, and then I gave them to people who can't afford glasses. Each glass has a story, and every finger that touches these glasses has a story. Your analysis has a story. You have a story, and you're touching many lives. So I met a gentleman who had this storeroom of boxes of these glasses. And he's actually one of the main headquarters in Southern California for the Lions Club and these glasses. Oh my goodness. And so volunteers come in, some are former optometrists, and they read the prescriptions on all of these glasses. And you know, someone had to ask, okay, so people are throwing away their prescription glasses, but there are people who need these glasses and they can't afford them. So what? What can I do? What if I collected all of these glasses and I cleaned them up, found out what the prescription was, and then I had something like a fair and we examined people's eyes. Optometrists would examine people's eyes. We'd have a wonderful event and we'd give away these used glasses. We need to ask ourselves, so what? What can we do? And what if I did something about it? So I want to look at lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is about focusing slowly. It's about focusing on things in a different light. So a physician and inventor, Edward de Bono, coined lateral thinking to describe a kind of out-of-the-box reasoning and critical analysis of scenarios that call for more than typical step-by-step logic to solve. Lateral thinking is rejecting status quo of thinking and thinking in a new way. It doesn't say, okay, so look at this statement. If someone falls out of a 30-story building, but lives, with luck and a landing pad not being factors, how could the person have survived? Someone fell out of a 30-story building and lived. Now, what's your reaction? Oh, wow. That person may have lived, but has broken bones all over the place, right? Well, the statement doesn't say that the person fell from the 30th floor, does it? The person could have fallen out of the 30-story building from the first floor. We have to think of things differently. Here's another example. If you were alone in a dark cabin with only one match, a lamp, a fireplace, and a candle to choose from, which would you light first? One match. What would you light first? Well, some people might say a fireplace or a lamp, huh? But what do you have to do first? You have to light that match. Oh, here's one. I love this one. There are a dozen eggs in a carton. 12 people take a single egg, but there's one egg left in the carton. What happened? Wait, were there 13 eggs? No, it says there were a dozen eggs. Not a baker's dozen, a dozen eggs in a carton. And cartons only hold 12, right? So 12 people take a single egg, but there's one egg left in the carton. How can that be? Well, maybe 11 people took the egg out of the carton and one person left the egg in the carton and took the carton and the egg. See, we have to think differently. It's all about seeing. So I'd like for you to connect the large dots. Oh, I'm sorry. I'd like for you to connect the large dots with only 4 lines and not take your pen up. So all connecting, and you're not lifting your pen. How would you do that? Well, let's see, we could, okay, so 4 lines. How could we do that? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, but then I have this missing. How could I do that? 1, 2, 3, but then I've got these missing. Oh, let's see. How can we do this? 1, I'm stuck. 2, 3, 4, 5. I've missed it. Let's see how we can connect. Oh, look at that. We go outside the boundaries of the 9 dots. We go 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. Sometimes we limit ourselves because we've created fake boundaries. We've created our thinking and we've limited it to boundaries that we naturally see. Let's look at another one. Oh, how can we connect these 9 dots with only 3 lines and not pick up our fingers? Only 3 lines. Well, here we go. Again, outside the box and on the edges. You see that? On the edges. But we did it. It's all about creative thinking. It's about not limiting our thinking analysis. Now, We also have to test. We have to test. The word prove comes from the Latin verb that means to test. The noun form of prove or proof has two meanings. It's evidence sufficient to establish a thing as true or believable, and it's the act of testing truth or believability. So, when you gather credible evidence and you develop a working thesis, then you create that connection and you're able to look at all of this, look at all the evidence and the working thesis, connect all the evidence, and you ask yourself again, what if? So what? Okay, so I know this information. I have all of this evidence and I have my working thesis, but I really don't have my thinking straight. I need to test it. I need to test the evidence. I need to test my working thesis. So let's look at the evidence. What is evidence? It's more than facts, but facts are necessary nevertheless, aren't they? We need facts, but it's more. It's more. The evidence is relevant. In other words, it has to be relevant facts, and it's facts applied to the situation you're writing about or presenting about. You'll need to explain how the facts are relevant. Are they reliable? Okay, so you have relevant facts, they're timely, but the results of putting them together, of connecting them, are they reliable? And maybe you have framed your fact-finding and your results and all of your evidence with assumptions. Just like we did with the 9 dots, we had assumptions in the very beginning that we had to stay within the boundaries of the 9 dots. Well, just as that limited our thinking, our assumptions frame the way we look at evidence. So we have to ask ourselves, what assumptions have we brought to the table? And do my assumptions take away from the reliability of my evidence? And then we have to look at, is the source reliable? Who found this information? And who put it all together? Who connected all the evidence, all of the reliable results? Did that source have framed assumptions as well? Probably. We have to know that. And then is the evidence representative of your situation? Your situation. So, evidence filled with facts that are relevant and they produce reliable results. I've examined my assumptions and the assumptions of the source, and the evidence is representative of my situation. So what do we do? So if you are in healthcare and you're looking at teams and building teams and honing your teamwork process, would you go to a source that talked about building teamwork in a library in India? I doubt it. I doubt it. So writing analytically on page 154 says, Evidence is never just some free-floating, absolutely reliable, objective entity for the casual observer to sample at random. It's always a product of certain starting assumptions and procedures that readers must take into account. Remember, you're approaching evidence, and that evidence, you're approaching it with your assumptions, but then the source that gave the evidence also had assumptions. So it's like these bubbles. Oh my goodness, these bubbles. Aren't they pretty? There's all kinds of evidence here in the bubbles. So the bubbles, this one, it's pretty large and it's beautiful and it's floating in front of a tree. And look, I see sunlight reflecting colors. It's acting as a prism. What can I deduce from that? And look at these two bubbles. They have even more vivid, beautiful colors because the light is being refracted from it. So if I were studying light, I might look at these bubbles in a different way, other than fun, and children love them. And this was in Italy, in a park, and children were running after the bubbles. So the bubbles have a story, but then the person presenting the bubbles, making them float up in the air, has a story too. And we found this throughout Europe as well, Central Europe. People would come on Sundays or the weekends, and they would just create all these beautiful bubbles, some small, some big, and the children would run after them. But evidence is never just some free-floating, absolutely reliable, objective entity for the casual observer to sample at random. So if we were to analyze these bubbles, we would have to get a little more scientific than what I described. And so there are different types of evidence. There's narration, or telling a story, like I did at the beginning of the presentation. Remember the story of the glasses? The glasses, they continue to have a story, and it's up to you to narrate it. Oh my. And then definition. We have to define our terms. Remember that not everyone comes from the same background as you. And so when we're dealing with complex topics or industry standards or industry definitions, we must define them, not from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, but from a professional standpoint. You're speaking to professionals. You're speaking to academics. So use a professional source to define your terms. And then there are categories. There are complex topics, and you may want to break the topic into smaller subcategories. Remember, if you are discussing a big idea and it has many components to it, you really can't analyze that. You have to create subcategories and get more narrow so that you can really dig deeply into your subject. Then there's description. Description, you want to show the reader or your audience that you understand all the situation. You want to describe the situation so that the audience experiences what you have experienced. You want to give all that you can give about your senses. So your taste, your hearing, your sight, your touch, your smell. And you get that here with this picture, don't you? I mean, she is touching those flowers, but she's focusing in on perhaps this flower here. The camera with this picture is focused on her, but she seems to be focused on the flowers. And I imagine she can smell those flowers, and she certainly feels them. She's looking at them, touching them, and smelling them. I don't know, maybe she has tasted them too, but it's up to us to give the audience that experience through description. And you can give examples and illustrations. Those are always very helpful. And the examples can be true or hypothetical, but you must carefully think through each of these scenarios. And then compare and contrast is extremely helpful. You can reveal how two pieces of evidence are alike and yet a little different. And how does that difference impact your outcome? And then, of course, cause and effect. But in cause and effect, we have to dig deeply. In healthcare, they ask 5 whys. So the nurse got pricked with a needle, and she was going to be giving a shot to an immunization to a child, and mom was holding the arm, and oh my goodness, the child, just as the nurse was going for the arm, child hit mom and hit the needle, and the needle hit the nurse, and she was injected. So how would we do this? Why? 5 whys. And those 5 whys are just kind of amazing, because those 5 whys, why did the nurse get pricked? Well, the child hit the needle. Well, why did the needle hit the child? Well, or hit the nurse? Well, mom let go of the arm. And why was mom holding the arm? Well, there weren't any nurses or healthcare workers available. Why weren't there any healthcare workers available? Well, they were on break, and we're short-staffed anyway because of COVID. Okay, so why didn't the nurse wait? Well, mama was impatient. She had to get to another appointment. And so you get down to the very, very core of why that happened, cause and effect. And then you develop your strategies. Well, in the future, no immunizations will be given to children without at least 2 healthcare workers administering. Interesting. And then framing your analysis is important. By going back to the story of the glasses, I'm going to end with glasses as well. And so you're framing your story, your types of evidence, so that you build tension, you look at those glasses and you say, what can we do with them? And I gave away the ending, but not really. There could be another ending. Let's see. You get the audience involved with framing. You end with a call to action or a question to ponder that will lead to additional research. You're not the only one that can do the research. Your audience can work with you. Wouldn't that be nice? Or they might go out on their own and do some research. Wow. All of this: narration, definition, categories, description, examples and illustrations, compare, contrast, cause and effect, and framing. Now, call to action, your question. Okay, so we need to look at all the evidence that we have and determine what is common knowledge. It's knowledge out there that has been referenced perhaps 5 times without any sources, credible research. So common knowledge. It might be the earth is round. Okay, you and I have accepted that. That is common knowledge. Then there's also other person's idea, another person's idea. Those ideas need to be cited and referenced in your research and in your papers, okay? And also in your presentations. You need to give credit where credit is due. So if it was another person's idea, it is to be cited. And then there's your idea, which is valid, but we need to make a good mixture of common knowledge, the other person's idea, and my idea, okay? So you, in your papers or in your presentations, you need to be marking and identifying what is common knowledge in my essay or my presentation. What is another person's idea? Is it valid? Is it according to the evidence that we have talked about? And I need to cite that and give that person credit. But then I need to have a conversation with that other person's idea and contribute knowledge to this. So I need to mark common knowledge, other person's idea, or my idea. And then I compile the results. So on paper 1, oh my. Paper 1, look at paper 1. It's mostly common knowledge, isn't it? There are a few other person's knowledge, and there's the fewest of my information. So, oh goodness, this is just a waste of time. First, paper 2 has mostly other sources. A little bit of common knowledge, a little bit of my information. This paper looks like a summary of the other person's ideas. Now, paper 3 has fewer than 10 common knowledge and other source evidence, and 49 of my ideas. That could be a rant. That's not valid either. But look at paper 4. It has just a few common knowledges and about even of another person's or another source's ideas and my ideas. This, my friend, is analysis. So it's important for you to look at your results and compile them. Just count them away. So how might you do that? You just mark CK by each sentence, or O or M, and you then count them up and see what you have. Okay. So how do we know? How do we know when a claim is made? We have to ask, how do I know that that claim it's valid? Okay. How do I know that it's evidence? The evidence should be in close proximity to your claim. Okay. So put your evidence close to your claim. And then ask yourself, suppose your evidence is near your claim and you ask, well, does this evidence really support the claim? We gather evidence and just plug it in next to our claims, but does it really support it? And then I may have found sources that differ a little bit. Examine those differences. How do they agree and how do they disagree? And you may find some real nuggets there. And then ask yourself, well, would the source agree with my contribution? What is it about that source that caused me to choose that source to put in my paper or my presentation? And how can I contribute to that source's knowledge? Okay, so we want to have a conversation with the source and then contribute to that. When you have conversations, it's not just one-sided, is it? It's going back and forth. And did you mean this? Oh, what if? So what? Oh, that's interesting. Have a conversation and you'll come up with your contribution. Okay, and then you can use evidence, warrants, and claims. So evidence is accepted information. It's observable. Oh, sorry. It's observable without reasonable disagreement. Evidence is, it can be testimonies, it can be interviews and surveys, can be, but you have to know what the authority is of that source. Is it in a professional trade journal? Is it in an academic journal? Or is it in a popular People magazine, Time magazine type? It wouldn't be accepted at the University of Redlands if you quote Time magazine or People. Okay, and then data. Data. We can prove anything with statistics, can't we? So we have to look at the credibility of the data as well. So we have evidence, and now we have warrants. This is evidence that's explained. We have to explain the evidence and how the evidence leads to the next category, claim. And warrants are the reasoning and thought process that leads to the claim. Then you have your contribution, your claim. What have you decided about the evidence? How have you explained it? And then you give an answer or recommendation. Recommendation is what you're going to be doing for your proposal. And then reasonable people can disagree with your claim, but all evidence needs sufficient warranting explanation to validate your claim. So again, you have evidence, you explain it with warrants, and then you develop your claim, your contribution to the conversation. So what would you do? Let's look at how we would look at evidence, warrants, and claims in our papers. You would label each sentence as evidence, warrants, or claim. So let's take from our reading. Another way to approach strategy from constraint is to ask whether you might benefit from self-imposed constraints. In parentheses, artists do something similar when they choose to work only within a particular medium. The famous Copenhagen restaurant, Noma, adheres to the new Nordic food manifesto, emphasizing purity, simplicity, beauty, seasonality, local tradition, and innovation. So where would the evidence, the warrants, and the claim be? So you would have another way to approach strategy for constraint is to ask whether you might benefit from self-imposed constraints. That's a claim. An explanation of that is artists do something similar when they choose to work only within a particular medium. The evidence, the famous Copenhagen restaurant, Noma, adheres to the new Nordic Food Manifesto, emphasizing purity, simplicity, beauty, seasonality, local tradition, and innovation. Now, chances are, this is very compact and very precise. Chances are in your draft, it's not going to be that neat, okay? And it could be reversed. So it could be you have the evidence first and the warrants and then the claim. So what happened? You return to your working thesis. The Lions Club collected all these glasses. And the volunteers looked at these glasses, cleaned them up, decided what prescription they were, categorized them. But what's the story? All those volunteers touching those glasses. And the person who originally had the glasses gave them to the Lions Club. So we reread the analysis and we don't leave it with the working thesis. We changed the working thesis with what we found. And we found that, oh my goodness, these glasses have a story. And that story is one little girl saw her grandmother in a clearer light and said, oh, Grandma, you are beautiful. I love you. Analysis. Can we see the complex more clearly if we ask, what if? So what? Am I limiting myself by the boundaries I've set? Am I depending on common knowledge or my ideas rather than credible sources? Am I looking at the data? Am I looking at the data correctly? Have I proven my analysis? You take care.